I'd like to welcome Representative Brower as my guest, my legislative guest. Representative Brower and I entered the legislature together in 2006. So he has a fond place in my heart. I'm particularly interested in talking to him because he hails from Waikiki, where the heart of tourism has essentially come to near standstill. Although residents are now experiencing less crowded streets, they are also feeling the economic impacts of unemployment. So welcome, Representative Brower. Good to have you here.
Hello, Hawaii. How's everything next door in your office, Della?
We are physical distancing. That's what's important, Representative Brower. So
We used to not do that.
we will get back to being more in person on June 22nd, Representative Brower. So tell me, for you, what has life been like for residents in Waikiki for the last 2 months?
Well, the sad part is that we don't spend as much time together. When I got into my elevator this morning, people were in masks. There was a family, and they physically moved from me. They used to move from me anyway before this, but now it's because of this sad pandemic. And I do a lot of walking through Waikiki. And what's also sad is that it's just like a ghost town. There's not many people. I find more locals and more people in the surrounding neighborhoods to Waikiki because the hotels are empty. The lobby doors are actually locked and closed. So it's just a very strange feeling.
Are you seeing more activity as we kind of move from stay at home, safer at home, act with care?
There's a lot more activity in the last few weeks. And I say with a little bit of a smile, it seems that the protesters have ended the COVA thing because I'm seeing people everywhere now. And when I walk along Waikiki Beach, as well as in our city and state parks, there is much less distancing, especially with young people. So they seem to have made a conscious effort that we are going to conduct our lives like this. So that makes us sometimes a little more anxious, or we have to pay a little more attention to what's going to happen with the virus and if it's going to be contagious, or hopefully that it's not.
So, in our previous speakers, they talked about contact tracing, they talked about good hygiene. What are your thoughts about some of the things that the state can do to help contain COVID?
I think that the state just needs to set the right example, and then we have to hope that people follow. So we want to have rules, we want to have laws in place, but we hope that we never need to use them. So I think for myself is that I follow the rules of the state or the rules of, let's say, a supermarket or a restaurant that I go into. So I wear the mask when I'm at the Capitol. I wear the masks in the hallways. And when I visit an office, I wear the mask there out of respect for their staff. But as you can see in my office here, I take off the mask. So for the most part, I want to respect law and order and then pay attention to what government is doing.
Yeah, and I want to touch on that since, you mentioned the protest and young folks going out and maybe relaxing too much. But in my observations, I thought that some of the protesters over the past weekend, were really good. Clearly, there wasn't physical distancing going on, but at least it was in open air. Masks were being used. I mean, so like you said, you walk around quite a bit. And you mentioned maybe in certain places, not as much physical distancing, but what's your feeling about other places? Have you seen do you think people are trying at least?
Well, first, let me say that I vaguely remember what it was like to be young. So I understand what they're up to. And I'm at the state capitol during the rally. And thank you, protesters, for not burning down the Capitol. But to the credit of many people, they did have face masks and they were very polite. What I've noticed, and I'm very touched, and in some ways it's kind of cute, but when I walk down the sidewalk, people get out of my way, I get out of other people's way, and it's not like a rude thing. Like a few months ago, if I was walking down the sidewalk past someone and I made a conscious effort to move away from them, they might sort of interpret that as me looking down on them. But today, everyone knows the reasons behind it. And I think that we're going to just have a lot more of a cleanly society, which is great. Because I'll just share with you, my hand washing habits haven't changed with COVID. I was a little bit of a germaphobe all my life. So I'm glad that my friends now have caught up to me.
Well, we certainly have Representative Brower. I want to shift gears just a little bit. So it was announced yesterday we're going to be reconvening session on June 22nd. What would you like to see emerge as priorities when the legislature reconvenes?
Well, first, I think that we want to listen to our constituents and their needs. At the same time, we may need to show leadership and be on top of issues that they may not be aware of. So I appreciate you and members of House leadership meeting with the committee chairs to figure out what doable legislation there is. At the same time, though, because of a loss of tax revenue, we have to be very careful. So if the legislature is able to provide funding for individuals and families in need, we need to do that, but at the same time be conscious that we may not have the funding that we anticipated a year ago. And then as the Housing Committee Chair, we're going to look if there's any non-fiscal bills that might make sense that can keep the flow of affordable housing going.
Yeah, so on that note, we started the legislature with such high hopes. I personally was super excited by our majority package that had in it things with dealing with income inequality, early learning, affordable housing. So, as the House Housing Chair, what are some of those non-fiscal things you think we can continue to do, or are there some fiscal things that we can do stimulate construction of affordable housing?
Well, one thing that worked out well so far is recently we did pass one of the largest housing appropriation bills in the history of the state of Hawaii. It was about $570 million for an omnibus package. And it's good, and we're lucky that we did this prior to the pandemic. We did it about a year and a half ago, so I'm happy about that. Right now, I think we want to look at the nuts and bolts and, how are we going to maintain the inventory of housing? And then what can we do maybe to spur more housing in private development? So it could be tax incentives in the private sector, and then just in state government is maintaining what we have now.
So I want to apologize to our viewers. I missed some of the questions, but we will try to get to those questions and maybe answer them offline. I don't see any questions or I don't see anything being sent to me at the moment. So I'm going to give you the last word, Representative Brower. Thank you for this conversation about what's happening at the Capitol, about what your priorities are, how we might be able to continue to keep our eye focused on affordable housing. I'll leave you with any last comments that you want to make to our viewers.
Well, I just appreciate you giving me this time, and we need to stay positive. And I just want to say to our constituents in Waikiki, if they can hear me say, I'm standing 6 feet away, I got my face mask on, could I sing you a song? That corona social distance puts a cramp in my existence. It's your hugs and kisses are the things that I misses. So with contact tracing, we'll flatten the curve for now, shelter in place till they give you the word. Are you asymptomatic or pre-existing conditions, false positive test, nervous fetal position? In your role as a leader, Della, make measured decisions because the brave new normal was open for business. Embrace happiness, sorrow, as if no tomorrow. Time is precious on earth till your last day from birth. So let's wear our masks for a while, and behind it, a positive smile.
Thank you so much, Representative Brower. This is why I love you. Thank you to all of our guests today, Dr. Amy Grace, Dr. Sarah Park, for joining me on this episode of Talk Story with House Majority. It's more important than ever that we stay connected and informed during these uncertain times. If you're new to the show, please follow the House Majority on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at High House Dems for most recent updates and future episodes. You can also visit our website at hawaiihousedemocrats.com, which has resources, press releases, and valuable information on how the House Majority is responding to COVID-19. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and stay informed. We'll see you next Wednesday to Talk Story with House Majority. Aloha.